Tuck and Tuck Show.
Welcome to the Tuck and Tuck Show. Today we have two very special guests. We have Emily Winfield.
Yes.
And we have Jose Flores.
Yes.
Is that correct? And you guys are from LCADA.
Right.
So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with LCADA.
Okay. So I actually am a person in long-term recovery. I actually was a client of LCADA about 15 years ago. And after my treatment was over, I actually volunteered with the group, with the agency, and then I became a counselor, and then I became a prevention specialist, and then I became an employee, and then I ended up being the director. So 15 years later, I'm the director of our prevention department.
Okay.
So I'm not in recovery, but I've always been fascinated with just the information of like drugs and alcohol and addiction and why people do certain things and how it affects like your brain and your body. So I've been here, actually my work anniversary was last Saturday, 4 years now. Jose hired me. Yeah, so I just received my prevention specialist certification too. So we are both licensed by the state, and we're kind of like top dogs now.
So how long does it take you to get your license, to be licensed by the state?
There's a lot of requirements for licensure by the state of Ohio. You have to start as a registered applicant, and then you move into something called a prevention specialist assistant, and then you actually get licensed. And there's like requirements of so many hours that you have to be in the field in order to achieve certain levels of credentials and licensure. So it took her 4 years to get to where she's at right now.
Oh, so that's almost like a college degree you're working for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's more hands-on.
It's a lot of
trainings,
a lot of trainings, a lot of hands-on, like you said, experiential learning. It's really intense, though. We cover a lot of stuff.
Okay, so what does LCADA mostly handle? I know you do drugs, alcohol, and you mentioned before the show gambling as well.
Yes. So did you want to take that? Because I don't really know necessarily
Sure.
what's like the one we mostly deal with.
We do a lot of treatment for substance use disorder, and we also do treatment for mental health disorders. People who have anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, and that's the majority of what the agency does. We have 9-10 offices around Lorain, Cuyahoga, and Erie County. We have 150 employees. 10 of them are in the prevention department. And we kind of do a lot of school-based stuff in the prevention department. We work on substance use prevention and mental health prevention, education, awareness, a lot of social emotional learning, skills-building activities. So teach young people and adults basically how to handle anxiety, depression, and regulate their emotions. But the majority of it, bread and butter, is treatment.
Okay, now, you said you started like 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So from 15 years ago, what differences have you seen, especially like in mental health? Because I know that's become a much bigger issue within like maybe the last 5 to 10 years. So can you tell us a little about how LCADA has grown since you've been there?
Since I've been there, they've doubled our size in office space. We've doubled the size of employees that we have. And a lot of, over the last couple of years, probably 3-4 years, we've really gotten really heavy into the mental health issue. We're also doing medicated assisted therapy, which is, when it first came out, it was very controversial. It was, giving people Suboxone to get over their opiate addiction and those kind of things. So it was very controversial, and LCADA was in it when they first came out. And it turns out now the studies and the research behind it says that's basically the way to go for folks who have opiate addictions, is to use that method of treatment. So I like to think that the agency is kind of cutting edge in the treatment areas and in the prevention field.
So how does that treatment work? I mean, why is it so cutting edge?
The medication was basically, since the 70s, they were using methadone for opiate addiction. But now they use something called Suboxone, Subutex, those kind of things, Vivitrol. Those medications have, Suboxone and Subutex have an opiate component to it, but also has naloxone in it. So basically what happens is that the medication decreases the cravings and really keeps the clients from abusing opiates.
Okay, because I know there is I work for a nursing home, and we had a resident who uses methadone, and I didn't know there was a methadone clinic in Elyria, like by the old Walmart. I didn't know that even existed until recently.
It really wasn't there until recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now,
that.
do you guys have anything to do with that, or that's totally separate?
No, we don't deal with any of those kind of medicated assisted therapies. The place in Elyria does it, and then mostly it's something that's done in Cleveland.
Okay. So, but now you said you work with the schools as well. Do you work with schools? Because when I was coming up, I always knew the people that were in jail or coming out of jail, they always say, I got to, I see you start to smile. People would say, man, I got to go to LCADA. But they always said, LCADA was, it helped them.
Yeah.
So do you still do people that come out of prisons, and do you help kids in school and all that good stuff too?
Yeah, we still do the work with the courts. So if somebody's going through court, they get an assessment, and then they get sent to jail, or they go to treatment, or they get to pick what, do you want to go to treatment or you want to go to jail? So a lot of people will go to treatment in lieu of getting locked up. And I really don't, as far as I'm concerned, if someone's in treatment, they're getting something from it, whether they're 100% successful for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years. If they're in there and they're receiving the education and the treatment, it's good for them. But yeah, a lot of people have gone through their treatment program. They're through mandated by the courts, family drug court, veterans court, whatever. They go through and they're successful. They do well.
Now, are the majority of the people that come to you, are they all mandated through court, or do they come on their own, or their family sending them?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. We do get a lot of referrals from court and probation, drug court, all those things like I just mentioned. But we also get a lot of self-referrals. And we get referrals from doctor's offices, or from, like Job and Family Services, or Children's Services, rather, because women are pregnant and they're using, and so they need to go to treatment. I know that there's a great program in Cleveland at Metro Health with women who are, it's called the Moms Program, and it's for women who are pregnant and addicted to opiates. So we get a big mixture of referrals from all over. We'll get them coming out of detox. We'll get them before they go into detox. We'll get them coming out of jail, going into jail. So we have a huge referral source for our agency.
All right. With that, we're going to go to break,
Okay.
and we'll be right back after this.
Yep.
Prestige Detailing, your premier mobile auto detailing service, bringing the car wash to you. You can have your car detailed right where you are. We service a 50-mile radius of Oberlin, Ohio, ensuring that our exceptional service comes straight to you. Visit our website or give us a call to schedule an appointment today.
Welcome back to the Tuck and Tuck Show.
All right. We're back with members of LCADA, Jose Flores and Emily Winfield. So before we left, you mentioned something about prevention, because you're more in the prevention part, right?
Yes, we both are.
Okay, so what does that entail? What does the prevention part entail?
So my job is kind of unique, whereas some of my other coworkers are just school focused. I'm both school focused and community focused. So part of my role is to do like social emotional learning curriculums with students. I work with them on, how to regulate your anger, or, how do we have good communication, instead of stomping our feet and yelling, how can we actually talk to someone and get what we want without demanding it. A lot of social skills. These kids are coming out of COVID and they don't know what social skills are. They don't know how to behave necessarily how they should be. So it's really just kind of like being patient with them and just reiterating them, like, I understand how you're feeling, you're valid, but let's try this way, With the community aspect of it, I'm part of the Problem Gambling Coalition of Lorain County. I'm also part of the Vaping Task Force of Lorain County. I'm the lead person on that. So I get to do a lot of different interesting things. I love getting out in the community and just talking to people about these topics, because people, there's still that stigma that it shouldn't be talked about. And I'm like, I wanted to talk about this since I was like in high school, but I went to a private school where it was hush hush. That doesn't happen to us. It's, what are you talking about? That's not real. Like, plot twist. It is. And, the more comfortable we get with it, the more that people can realize, like, oh, I might actually need help, instead of feeling that shame and just vulnerable. So
you said like vaping. Did you think vaping like leads to other stuff, or just vaping itself is just bad?
Both. So vaping is still kind of new on the table. It hasn't been around as long as like traditional tobacco products. Like, we know that Native Americans used to smoke pipes for religious ceremonies and things like that. We knew doctors and pregnant people used to smoke back like in the 40s and 50s. So there really wasn't like that information that out yet that's like, okay, you can hurt yourself doing this. You're going to get cancer. Something else is going to happen. So with vaping, it is still relatively new. We don't necessarily know long-term effects of it, but we are seeing a lot of damage happening in a short amount of time. So people's lungs are collapsing a lot quicker. People's teeth are deteriorating a lot quicker. I see it like, especially I have from family members who vape, and even though I'm like, don't do that, they're adults.
And they think it's harmless, probably.
Exactly.
When they first started, they thought it was harmless, but now they are starting to see like, oh, I'm like craving this all the time, or when I get anxious, like I really just want to take a hit of my vape. And so it's turning into more than, I thought it was just harmless. And it's like, now you're starting to see stuff too.
Do you think that's more like chemical or just like an oral fixation? Because some people always need to have something in their hand, and it's more like...
Oh, yeah. My sister's one of those people. She used to chew on pens and pencils all the time, like when she was younger. So the reason why she started, and I don't mean to put my sister on blast or anything.
You are.
She gives me permission to talk about her because I love her so much. But it was the same old story. My friends were doing it, so I wanted to try it, and now, it's gotten to a problem, and we've had our talks about it, and we've had our conversations of like, well, what kind of support do you need to just even cut back? And I told her throughout the next week, what I want you to do is anytime you get like a craving, or anytime you have that urge to take a hit of your vape, like write down what you're doing. See what you're doing, how you're feeling, what you're thinking, like everything that's going on, where you're at. And let's try to pinpoint if there's like a pattern going on. So we realized that she actually is anxious, like super anxious. She never was like that growing up until the last couple of years. And so seeing, okay, your anxiety is getting out of control. Like, what else can we do to manage that anxiety
and
with
while
you?
this sounds like therapy, is because it is.
Right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Actually,
That's exactly what that is.
Emily and I and a couple of other staff members, we actually went to a class. We took this long course.
It was a
really
month long.
A month long to learn how to do tobacco treatment and vape treatment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and what she's talking about right there, those are all therapeutic actions that you take with folks who you're working with them to stop, help them to overcome their vape use.
So even creating like a quit kit is helpful. You find out like, okay, is it something you just need like in your mouth? So do we need to put like gum or mints in it? Is it stress? Do we need to put like a stress ball in there? Do we need to do journaling or something, like get you a little notebook? It's different for everyone. And that's what's really interesting too about it.
Is it also different for like every substance? Because being addicted to vaping is not the same as being addicted to crack or alcohol or literally anything else. So what does that look like for other substances or people with other addictions?
So again, with like the mat stuff, there actually is nicotine replacement therapy that is approved by the FDA for people who are 18 and older. What's difficult right now is we are seeing a lot of teenagers and middle schoolers vaping where there is no like medical assistance for them. So essentially with quitting that, it is very difficult. They need a lot of support with it, but it's not impossible. And that's what I try to tell my students. Like when I'm talking to them, I'm wink, wink, you guys don't do it. But if you do need that help, like just know this is going to be a hard journey, but like it's not impossible to get done. So if I'm an adult though, and I'm smoking or vaping, I can easily go get, the nicotine patch or something. Whereas a youth, they can't. So for them, it almost is as bad because, it rewires their brain. What nicotine does, and it's actually one of my favorite substances to learn about because what it does to the brain is it actually hijacks and then mimics the way your brain produces its own dopamine. Your brain can physically not produce its happiness. And so trying to get it back to that original start is really like the kicker. And for an adult, it's generally about 2 weeks of like not fun times. And for a youth, it's going to be longer, but at the same time, just checking in on them and supporting them. We have programs for them that they can come to us and we can work with them. Even if it's after school or if it's during school, we can sit with them and really like guide them through this process. And so they're not doing it alone.
I think when you talked about it not being the same as different chemicals you were using, it actually triggers the same area of the brain. And if you look at addictions as a whole, there's a lot of things, a lot of variables that go into that. Genetics, and some of them are predispositions. There are risk factors that are involved. But when you look at the way cocaine activates in the brain and the way heroin and opiate and even gambling, if you ever think about if you ever was on the slot machine and the lights go off and people get this adrenaline rush, and it's not it doesn't work too far from how the addiction triggers your brain. So you have to look at that. The dopamine receptors in the brain definitely play a role in every addiction. So that's something that we have to look at, and there's a lot of science behind mapping how the brain works with addiction. There's actually books and studies and all kinds of things that go on with this. It's amazing, some of the stuff that you can read or just watch videos or, on some of the research behind it. It's amazing.
All right. With that, we're going to go to break, and after that, we'll be right back.
Great.
Okay.
Hi, welcome to the ARB.
Looking for an excellent restaurant? Then visit the ARB at Tappan Square, located at 19 West College Street in beautiful downtown Oberlin. Serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in or take it to go. Visit www.thearboberlin.com to order online. The ARB is open Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Be sure to visit the ARB at Tappan Square in Oberlin today.
Thanks for coming to the ARB. Come back again. Bye.
Welcome back to the Tuck and Tuck Show.
All right, we're back on the Tuck and Tuck Show with Emily Winfield and Jose Flores. And I had a question right before we went to intermission. You guys were talking, but you mentioned during the intermission about how dopamine affects your brain. Mm-hmm. Now, lately there's been a lot of, on TV, you see a lot of these gambling sites, FanDuel, and a lot of people are into gambling. And even at my job, there's like a kid, he's younger, he's like 18, 19 years old, and he started gambling, and I was like, dude, you got to be careful with that, because what happens is once you win, you get so excited, and it's like a rush.
It's that big
and
win.
now he's like, he can't stop gambling.
Yeah.
So if you could, just talk to us about like how gambling works, like in the brain, and how people are becoming addicted to gambling?
Yeah, so it does give you a rush of dopamine. After a while, that tolerance does build up. So like any other like physical drug you're putting into your body, you're not physically putting gambling into you or anything, but that rush of, am I going to win? Am I going to lose? Like that's what's really enticing to them. And so that dopamine is there. Well, you know, after you lose so many times, they're like, just one more time, I'm going to win my winnings back. Right. So they're chasing that loss.
It's like chasing a high almost.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, it really is. And, you know, unfortunately, people do end up having gambling disorders. You know, we were talking about mental health too, where 96% of people with gambling disorders also have another co-occurrence addiction or mental health issue. So if they're depressed, they're anxious, if they're suicidal, that's a huge thing. You wouldn't think of this at all, but people who have gambling disorder actually have the highest rate of suicide attempts and do die by suicide.
Yeah, I know somebody that they spent all their money gambling and they lost. And then they did commit suicide because they couldn't pay their bills or nothing after that. It is very sad.
Yeah, it's really tragic because, you know, it's the whole saying like money doesn't bring happiness, and it's like, well, you know, it's just to survive, you know, you got to have your basic money. So, you know, there are ways to set yourself up to succeed with some stuff. You know, only bring a certain amount of dollars. If you're going to gamble, like if you're only going to gamble with $50, only gamble with $50. Don't tap into like money for your bills. Make sure that this is like something that you're doing just for fun, not like, okay, I'm going to make my big paycheck next time.
Yeah, but the crazy part is you'll watch things that have commercials about gambling, and then right after the commercial, like, if you think you have a problem, call this number. Right? So they know that you can become addicted to it, but yet they're going to make money off of it, so they're going to do it anyway.
That's actually interesting because when I first started at LCADA, you know, Jose interviewed me, and he's asking me all these gambling questions, and I'm sitting here like bug-eyed. I'm like, this is my 50th interview that I'm not going to get the job. And, you know, I didn't realize it was an addiction. And, you know, I went to college for public health. I studied substances. I never thought gambling was really addiction. It wasn't on my mind.
It's so socially acceptable. It's just like part of everyday life.
Yeah,
you know?
and everybody...
People give lottery tickets to their kids for
Oh, yeah.
Christmas.
My friend's great-grandma, she has a 6-year-old, and my friend's great-grandma gives lottery tickets to the 6-year-old. And I'm like, Grandma, like, no.
And they're going to tell you, oh, it's harmless. It's no big deal.
To her, it is. It is no big deal because that's how she grew up. You know, she's in her late 80s, 90s. Like, that wasn't relevant when she was younger. And it's like, to me, if someone gave me a lottery ticket, like, dang, I would have rather just had that $5 instead of a piece of paper.
I always have to think, like, if I gave a kid a lottery ticket and it was a $1 billion winning ticket,
oh, lucky them.
Who's getting that money? Because it's not going to the kid. Like, the kid's not getting that money.
They legally can't cash that in. No. So, I mean, if their parents cash it in, like, that's really the only legal way, I guess. I don't know.
And that's what's going on now. I mean, if you think about sports betting, online sports betting, now I've heard recently of a kid, local kid, you know, I'm not going to say any names or anything, but it was using his father's credit card on this gambling website, and then he would give his father, you know, $40, $50, $100 to wager. And if he won, the dad would pay it off. And so, you know, this kid is using his father's account and his father's credit card, and he's the one who's gambling on football games. So,
are you talking about the kid who lost $1,000?
Yeah,
he lost $1,000 with the Super Bowl, and to him, that was kind of the wake up call of like, oh, I shouldn't do that, but I'm still like, okay, what if you won that though? Like, it could have went 2 different ways. Like, you know, that could have been his big game or his big win. That would have been a big win for me.
Yeah. Now, other than like gambling stuff, a lot of people deal with, and I don't know much about drugs because I don't partake in them.
Right.
But like fentanyl and all that stuff, and what's the one where you get Narcan to bring you back?
That's fentanyl.
Fentanyl, heroin.
Yeah.
So heroin, is that bigger than it used to be, or is that, because I know like in the 70s it was big and then it went away, and that it's like cyclical. It'll go away and then it'll come back.
Yeah.
So is that still a big thing? Like in this county, is that big?
It is. It is in the state of Ohio. It's huge. Fentanyl is everywhere. We talk to folks a lot about testing any type of drug that they get with fentanyl test kit, just to make sure that what they're using is what they think it is and not fentanyl. A lot of folks overdose and die because they're using fentanyl when they thought they bought a Percocet pill from somebody they know, on the street, and it turns out it was fentanyl.
It was
and
a
they
pressed
overdose
pill.
and they die. And it's a fake pill.
Oh, that's the question I got. Now, if you're selling fentanyl, your customer might not come back.
Well,
So why would you even deal with fentanyl in the first place?
Well, some of those folks think they're smarter than everybody else too, and they think if I put a little bit of fentanyl in here, my product's going to be better than everybody else's, and they're going to keep coming back. And the ones that they lose kind of are, I don't know, I don't want to say collateral damage, but they're collateral
That's
damage.
great. That's sad.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people get upset because you get was it Narcan?
Yeah.
You get that for free.
Absolutely.
But I mean, some people are like, well, I can't get my medication for free, so I don't think they should get that for free.
And I've had people come up to me and say, you should be ashamed of yourself for giving this for free. And like just being like really rude. And he's like saying like, I should get my insulin for free. And I'm like, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
You're talking to the wrong person though. Like that's out of
Everybody.
my control. I totally agree with you. But that's something bigger than me. So it's like,
Everybody
I will,
deserves a chance at recovery.
yeah, I will rally behind you any day though. So
I just know people will say, like you said, I should get my insulin for free, or I should get this medicine for free.
like I get it.
Yeah, so I know that's a lot of people have a problem with that, and I've heard of people having like parties to see which one will pass out where they need the Narcan to come back. So, and that's that makes it even worse.
The only reason though why that like really hits the media because it doesn't happen that often though too.
And it's like sensational when they do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's sensational, and that sells, airtime. That
Right.
sells.
Yeah.
It's
that sells
exciting.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't hear about it too often. It's like I was teaching some kids the other day about what do we see in the media? Well, we see all these tragic things because it's worthy enough for our news. That little puppy who just got adopted from the APL, that's whatever. Right. But these really terrible things, that's
Tragedy.
that's
It
what
sells.
reels people
Attention
in.
getting.
Yeah, it does. Now, if I wanted to say I was on drugs and I wanted to get into your program, what's the best way to get into your program?
440-989-4900. That's our number, our mainline number for any one of our locations. You can get on that. They can connect you with someone who can take your information and get you hooked up with an assessment.
Now, do you have a website, or are you on social media at all?
Yeah, our website is www.thelocadaway.org. And Emily does a lot of our social media.
Yeah, we have 3 social media pages actually.
Are you on TikTok?
We are not on TikTok.
Not yet. Not my fault.
You must want to be on TikTok.
She does.
You want to be on TikTok.
I couldn't
listen,
get it
I'm
past
not.
the administration, so.
I'm not a social media person, but I know what the kids like. Mm-hmm. But we do have Facebook pages. We have Instagram. We have Twitter, or X now. But our main one is Facebook. So we have just the regular, the LCADA way. Then we actually have one specifically for the prevention department called Keys to Prevention. That's like a lot of information on youth and youth resistance and things like that, or resiliency, excuse me. And just information on that. And then we also have one specifically for gambling called Beat the Odds. So I'm in control of that one for the most part. But those are our social medias.
Okay, so Beat the Odds. That's what you're.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's our gambling one.
So can you help my friend Matt, because he's got he's got a serious.
He's
problem.
got to want
not.
it though, too.
He does not have a problem. Stop talking about him.
I know him.
You know
I've
him?
tried to help him. Usually what I do is I gamble against him and take his money. And then I say, maybe you should quit. And he goes, no, I can't.
So then, with that way of thinking, you might have a problem too, and they might need to talk
I
to
know,
you
right?
too. If you gambling against him,
I'm saying if you're right there at the table with him.
Right?
taking his money,
You are winning big. He's chasing the losses.
Yeah, I'm trying to help him.
Wow.
Trying to help
Wow.
learn a
And then
lesson.
once he wins, though, you'll be chasing the losses.
No, and you know what that is true because people will always tell you what they win and they never tell you what they lose.
Oh, yeah,
They
exactly.
never tell you what they lose.
You know, my family dabbles in lottery tickets. They're like, oh, I won $50. I'm like, how much did you pay for that? 20. So I'm like, you really won 30 then. But
They
okay,
never think
cool.
that way either.
Yeah, I know. So
They-
I'm like, that you didn't win that.
Yeah, because
I'm
I
like,
know
I gotcha.
we know a guy that gambles like buys those scratch offs all the time. He's like, I won $80. Like, how many tickets you buy? Well, I bought 3 of them. I'm like, well, how
And
much are they?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, $20 a piece. So you won $20. You didn't
Yeah.
win 80.
It's not even about money sometimes.
Yeah.
Like some kids, I mean, high school kids would be playing basketball for shoes.
Really?
Oh yeah, $200-$300 kicks
Oh, that can
on the
get
line
dangerous
for a game.
Does that count?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that can
That's
be-
A lot of
the funny
things you
story-
wouldn't think count. Like
Yeah.
bingo. Bingo could be gambling.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, those old folks with their stampers.
Had a kid tell me I kept saying gamble. He said, I never gamble. And then I said, you never laid a bet on anything? He goes, I bet my shoes all the time.
Oh, those are expensive.
Yeah. And he's not paying for them.
Yeah, he's not paying for
Somebody
them.
else's money.
But I'd hate to be the other kid go home and lose.
Without no
You know,
shoes on.
no shoes on.
No shoes.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap this up. Emily, you've been great. Jose,
Yeah.
you've been fantastic. And
You were all right.
I'm great every
You were
week.
all right.
I'm awesome.
Thanks for having us.
So what's that?
Adios.
This has been another bomb-ass production from Short Walk Studios.